sir. Okay, Rev Steele. Boom. I'm waiting the notification. And here we are. Boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast. We have an incredible guest with us this afternoon, one who is going to give us some great information as well as some inspiration. This is the legendary Reverend Charles Steele Jr., a civil rights activist, the president of SCLC, and he's going to give us all of his bio and his backstory of him being a state senator and his work on the front line for the liberation of all people, but especially the downtrodden people. So I want to thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the People's Podcast with us today, sir.
Happy to be here.
Okay, excellent. My sister Miriam says peace. Okay, boom. The first thing I want to know, sir, is when did you know that you had a calling for the ministry?
Well, in terms of my ministry, it's different than I would say most ministry, because I believe in giving it all up in terms of what I do. And I like to think myself as a minister spiritually as well as business-wise. And that's the part we as African Americans and people of color don't understand. And don't forget, this country did the okie doke on us. You know,
yes, sir.
It misled us, you know. And we don't understand wisdom. And they look down on the elders. Everything that I accomplished come from my elders, because I was a very observant person coming from the bottom. I mean, daily bottom to the bottom in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, when the shotgun house, when my grandmother and my parents, my mother, my father, my auntie, my uncle used to just basically talk about life and the next door neighbors and people sharing their food. My grandmama used to say, go next door and tell Miss Julia to give me a cup of sugar and put 2 pieces of light bread on it. I got to feed my family.
Yes,
she didn't say white bread, she said light bread. You know, then she said, boy, tell her to give me some hope. I said, grandmama, hope? You mean give you some help? Shut up, boy, I know what I'm talking about. Give me some hope. I want her to hope me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's what it's all about. And we try to overlook the background and the necessity of knowing our history. You know, you come out and you talk about this generation, that generation. I think it's really divisive to come out and put a label on the various generations. You know, that's the way of this, I say the man. That's another way of the man, because the white man started all of this in terms of white supremacy. But I'll pause now, because I could go on and on.
Oh, go on and preach, Reverend. Yes, sir. When did you get into what was it like coming into SCLC? How did that happen?
Well, I've been in the movement all my life, and SCLC since Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. All of the opportunities and the enjoyment of societal life for people of color comes from basically SCLC. Without Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, in terms of your freedom. And we've gone back 50 years. Many people don't understand their history. You got to know your history in order to go forward. Black on black crime. If you knew your history, you wouldn't be around here letting the white man and the white supremacy aspect of this system. When I say the white man, I'm talking about this system. And white women had no right to vote, as you know, in terms of the Suffrage Act. It was all about white men being supreme. So I tell white women all the time, I speak all over the world. I said the civil rights movement has freed white women more than anybody. White women has been freed more than black folks, because they was enslaved too, but subliminally, subconsciously, they didn't even know it. White supremacy is a virus. It's no different than COVID-19. It's a silent killer. And We have swept it under the rug too long.
Beautiful, amazing. And when you are speaking all over the world, how do people receive you? How do people receiving your message?
I love that. Very good question. What our people don't realize, particularly, first of all, I was talking about wisdom. You get wisdom. Well, first of all, God gives all the wisdom. God gives us wisdom. All come from God, number one.
Yes, sir.
Number
yes, sir.
two, so kind and so graceful and mercy that he allows us to get certain amount of wisdom upon our experiences. What we don't realize, like they don't teach that in school, Doc. They don't teach that in school. You got to get this stuff for yourself, even though you got to get the schooling. You got to get that. And so if you don't get the schooling, you have nothing to compare to. So my whole point is this. My whole point is this. Wisdom, first of all, comes from God. But the other category of perspective of wisdom come from your experiences. Too many of us don't have the wisdom because we are too concerned about being comfortable or just doing what everybody else is doing. Look at here. When the Lord bless you, you can't take everybody with you. You understand what I'm saying? There are some places, even with the old friends you have, you can't take them along with you because they're going to tell you what the other folks are saying. That's a dangerous Negro that come out and say that this is what the folks are saying about you. I don't want to hear that. I'm talking about what the Lord is telling me, what God himself is telling me. That's what I'm all about. So you asked me the question about how they receive me when I travel abroad. Yes, Three ways to get educated outside of the traditional education. Eat, travel, and build relationships. Those are the three ways to maturate in terms of your becoming an expert, whatever you do. You have to find out what your purpose is. You can't be like Johnny. Stop trying to be like somebody else. Come on the TV, see these athletes, see these entertainers. That's fine. That's what they do. But God got something even greater for me to do. You know, so it's not about the politics. We let politics control us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Control politics. People who are elected in position, we need them. We hope to get the best of them, particularly people of color. We want them to have integrity. You got to have integrity, and you got to be a person that cares for others. But this is my point. We're making stars out of politicians. How in the world are you going to make a star? When I think of a star, I think about a movie star. That's somebody who's a pretender. They are pretenders. They are reacting a character, an actor. They are not themselves when they're doing that. So how you going to call a politician a rising star? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
we
sir.
got
Yes,
our mentality all confused. But we as a people must understand, politics has never freed us. It has never freed us. We must free politics. Lyndon Baines Johnson didn't wake up one morning and say, I want to free the Negroes. He was pressured into freeing us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we're missing the boat. We have left civil rights and we go on to the entertainment world. I'm not knocking that, but entertainment didn't free you. It was the civil rights movement that freed you. Politics has never freed us without being pressurized. The most significant aspect in today's society in terms of the upward mobility of any group of people, particularly African Americans, is the civil rights movement. You cannot free us as a people just dependent upon politics. Look what I won't call this party, that part. I won't put no labels on. Look what one of the politicians is doing who's in the Oval Office. Won't even call his name. Going through ramification of the process of saying, I was voted out illegally. That's politics. But guess what? On his side of politics, none of the folks will come out, and I'm talking about the U.S. senators, would not come out and say this man is wrong in terms of his lies, in terms of him misleading us, in terms of his inability to care for people and to lead us in the proper perspective and right for the upward mobility of all God's children, because they have no courage. I don't respect nobody without courage. They're afraid that they're going to lose some support, a vote. You're going to sell your soul on a vote? You're supposed to have the principles of doing what's right. And I rest my case.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, how do you get the courage, and how have you kept the courage for all these years? And what advice would you give to the next generation and the younger generations after you to keep that courage or to get the courage?
I have a cliche, an expression that I use called the fact that a scared Negro gets you killed.
Yes, sir.
You don't fool around with the frightenness of the individual aspect of anybody who's afraid to stand up for what's right. And I'm always trying to be very confident in the fact that I don't discriminate on my own when folks don't support what I think they should support. And I don't discard that, because God didn't give them that ability not to be a scared Negro. You know,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Their ability is to stay where they are. I tell them, just stay out my way and continue to be a scared Negro. Don't get in my way. And that's how, and it's a lonely position. It's a very lonely position. It's God, my wife, and myself. That's my Trinity, other than the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
God, myself, and my wife. And that's where, even with my children, it's nice. I think I have the best children and grands in the world, but it doesn't fall on them. It falls upon the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost.
Yes, sir.
And God, my wife, and myself. That's where we are.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And you don't care who supports you or who doesn't support you. You got to do what is right. And you have to have courage.
Excellent. Well, what was it like for you to meet some of the civil rights icons that who taught you and trained you, but specifically Dr. Martin Luther King? When we think of civil rights, we think of him in the 60s. What was it like to meet him? And then, of course, the other ones who personally trained you.
Right. Well, first of all, it was an honor to meet Dr. King. Great man. The spirit of Dr. King is with me. And unless you travel abroad, and I'm in the position of Dr. King. I'm in this position, been here 14 years or so. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
I got to know a little something. You know what I'm saying? I don't care who you are and what you are and whose you are. I'm God's property. I'm the purpose of God and what he wants me to do. But
yes, sir.
I got to know a little something being here for 14 years. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When I travel abroad, the reception that I receive, the impact that comes when I go to Moscow, Russia. Hello, somebody. And when I receive by the Russians, when I go to kill Ukraine after I leave Russia, and when I meet for 2 days with Mikhail Gorbachev, a former president of Russia. Mikhail Gorbachev invited me with my delegation to Moscow. But the fact being, a lot of people don't understand the history of this. In 1964, listen to me, young folks.
Yes, sir.
In September 13, 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was invited to Berlin. At that time, you had the Berlin Wall. You had East Berlin, West Berlin. East Berlin controlled by the Russians. West Berlin, America. So the tension was very high. So Dr. King flew into West Berlin, and the U.S. Embassy confiscated his passport because they knew he was supposed to speak at Sophie Lutheran Church and 2 or 3 other churches in East Berlin, which was Russia. So they told him, we're going to take your passport because we don't want those Russians over there to hurt you. You better be careful when folks try to tell you somebody else is against you, when America itself was against him and ultimately killed him. Do you see what I'm saying? So
yes, sir.
When he spoke at Sophia Lutheran Church in 1964, September 13, Dr. King said something. No man-built wall can separate God from his children. That's what I said that again. No man-built wall can separate God from his children. And then somebody was listening. How do I know? Because they told me they were listening, but they wasn't in the audience. It was former president of Russia, Mikhail Gorbachev.
Yes, sir.
He
yes,
said
sir.
he was working for the KBG at the time. He said, my job was to listen to everything and watch everywhere Dr. King went. He said, but I heard him say, as I was eavesdropping, I heard him say, no man-built wall can separate God from his children. That was 1964. Watch me now. 1989, the wall came down. He said that it never left the embeddedness of his mind on what Dr. King said. I said, what are you saying in the truism of your statement, Mr. Former President Gorbachev? He said, I'm saying that it was Dr. King who encouraged me and inspired me to knock down the Berlin Wall. How many Negroes know that? How many Black folks and people of color, African Americans? Let me say this when I use the word Negroes. We did most of our accomplishments when we were Negroes.
Yes.
Don't be ashamed of your heritage. I say that so you can go back and research and say, what is he talking about calling us Negro? Because you are the Negroid race. You have 5 different races, you know? And we are the Negroid race. You got to decide. Thought race, Mongoloid, Australoid, and now the Pacific Islanders. You are of the Negroid race. Nothing to be ashamed of. So that's why we have to be educated. How do you get educated? Read, travel, build relationships. In 2014, I was the only American, not even President Obama, was invited to Berlin, to the 25th commemoration of the fall of the Berlin Wall. This little country boy from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, was the only American invited. Mikhail Gorbachev sitting at one end, I'm at the other end, 25 countries in the middle. And this is what he told them. He said, there'll never be world peace without SCLC and African Americans.
Yes, sir.
So that's where we are. And I don't want to take over the conversation. You might have some other questions.
Oh, yes, sir. I absolutely do it. And a lot of people in the audience are showing love and saying thank you and sending peace, my sisters, and so many others. My next question for you, sir, is I was traveling with you and my father to Chicago, and I had the honor of, just being with you and spending time with you. How did you get it? But the only way I met you was because, of course, my father and through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. How did you wind up having a relationship with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam? How did that come about?
Well, through Reverend Albert E. Love, who's deceased now. And when Reverend Love made his transition, it'll be a year this coming January. When I first came to Atlanta in 2004, Reverend Love said, and he was my assistant, my special assistant, he said, you got to meet Minister Sharif. He said, that's my friend, that's my brother. He got the same spirit you got. So that's how I came in. And as you know, SCLC, under my leadership, we are very close to the leadership of Minister Louis Farrakhan and Minister Sharif and the Nation of Islam. You can't have no separation within the African American community, within our ethnicity and background. You can't look down upon one organization or another organization or religion. You got to find a happy medium. And that's what I like about your father, Minister Sharif, and your grandfather, Minister Sharif, and Minister Farrakhan, is that they no separation when it comes to the nation. Matter of fact, let me just make it clear and put it documented on record. It was Mr. Louis Farrakhan,
yes, sir,
who actually helped me in my leadership when SCLC was down to nothing in terms of finances. We were broke. You know, a lot of folks talk, you know, and they have no action behind their talk. And what are we going to do? And I'm sitting here listening to all of this. I said, man, I love my folk, but I got to get up out of here. I got to go find a friend that got some resources and influence. You know, you can't become localized when you are nationalized. Hello, somebody. You cannot become localized when you are nationalized and internationalized. You got to break ranks, and many times you're by yourself. But there are elevators. There are elevators of upward mobility that you can go. So I went to the palace, as you know, in Chicago.
Yes, sir.
To Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I told him what our problem was, that we were broke. Lights off, the phone off, had no resources. And I said, Minister, if you can just loan me $10,000 for 30 days, 60 days, no more than days, I'll be able to save SCLC. And Minister Farrakhan, I was on my way out the door. And I told him I got this suit on and looking sharp, but I am broke. And I spent all my personal money, my wife and I, in terms of saving SCLC. And Minister Farrakhan immediately wrote me out a $10,000 check. And he said, "You're gonna be successful." I said, "Minister, thank you, sir." That was the first seed. He said, "You're gonna be successful. And you got to promise me something." I said, "Oh Lord, he's gonna want it back in 2 weeks." He said, "You got to promise me something." I said, "Please, Lord, let it be 30 days, 60 days, not 2 weeks." He said, "You got to promise me that you will not pay me back." My Lord. My Lord.
Beautiful,
so,
beautiful.
After that seed that the minister invested in what he thought was an opportunity for me to elevate and move forward with Dr. King's organization. I tell the story because I don't want it to get lost.
Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Lost in history. See, what people don't realize, history is always watching.
Yes, sir.
And if we don't give history something to take a snapshot of, it won't get there. You won't be in the picture. I want that story to be there. I want it to be there. So after that seed that the minister invested in Dr. King's organization,
yes, sir, yes, sir,
I was able to raise $20 million in 3.5 years, build a brand new building debt-free. And the minister came by and he toured the building.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'm just so happy that God gave me the ability to understand that you cannot be a scared Negro. I just explained Negro to you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
we
sir.
are the Negroid race.
Okay.
And we are from Africa. But that's the whole concept of being glued. See, if you don't accept the Negroid aspect of where we come from with the aspect of Africa being the motherland, see,
yes, sir, yes,
so many of us never been to the motherland. How in the world you gonna know who you are if you don't go back home and understand? My wife and I, we got an office in Israel. We got an office in Dimona, Israel. And we got an office in Bethlehem. And my wife and I was flying to Israel, to Tel Aviv. And this young lady was on the plane next to us with her son. And she was asking us, "Why are you going to Israel?" This kind of thing. And then my wife asked her, "Why are you going to Israel?" She said, "My son just finished high school. And before he go to college, I want him to go back and see his home, his real home. You know, the ethnicity or background of him is Jewish. And I want him to spend a whole year over here in Israel, knowing where he came from. Now, I challenge you, any of you that's listening to me under my voice, to ask the average Black person, African-American, Negro, to go back and spend a year in Africa. That'll be the biggest fight you ever had in your life. just being honest. Dr. King said, first of all, gather the facts on the 6 principles. I'll be remiss if I didn't just in 30 seconds give you the facts on the Kenyan philosophy. Number 1, gather information. Get the information. Make sure you got the facts. I deal in facts. That's number 1. All over the world, they break their arms off to get this type of training. We go all over the world with Dr. Bernard Lafayette and his team to train folks on the Kenyan philosophy. Number 1, gather information.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Number 2, after you gather the information, then you educate the public. That's number 2. Number 3, you make a personal commitment to what you're doing. Number 4, you understand this necessity and the importance of negotiation. You have to be trained in how to negotiate. Number 5 is direct action. Now let me pause there before I give you number 6. We're using number 5 as number 1 now in the protests and the demonstration we're doing now. No information of the substance of what we need to do and the plan. Who was it? Frederick Douglass that said power concede to nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. You got to have the facts in order to demand, not just to be violently and destructively in your protest. It's always about being nonviolent. Nonviolent, not violent. That's why Dr. King was killed when some folks invaded his march in Memphis. And they brought about the violence concern, which they were paid to disrupt a peaceful march. They were contracted out. And guess who they were contracted out by? The government. To bring about the disruption and the violence that led ultimately to his death. It was Rutherford B. Hayes who said education of the public will bring about in the future the impossible. What I'm doing is giving you the facts and the education of what I know through my wisdom, because I've experienced this. And a lot of times people say, Steele, why you put yourself out on the limb? Because that's where the fruit is. It ain't at the trunk. The fruit is on the limb. You got to get out there and take a reasonable risk. Don't be no fool and walk into a 18-wheeler truck crossing an interstate of 285 when you know how dangerously it is. Reasonably step out on the limb, because that's where the fruit is. It's not at the trunk. Number 6. Number 6. I told you about direct action. Number 5. And we use number 1. Using that number 1. Number 6. You always reconcile. Reconciliation. Reconciliation. Always reconcile. And that's how you build, even though you have adversaries, at the end, you build relationships which take you higher and higher to the next concern.
Beautiful. Okay, excellent. Well, speaking of the 6 plans of, the 6 ideas of Dr. Martin Luther King that you teach, being on the front line, being from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, traveling all around the world, have you ever been faced with fear? And if so, how do you overcome the fear?
Good question. Wow. You sure you weren't on that trip with me? Yeah, several times. Once I was in Nigeria, and things just didn't work out right. And one thing, it was my mistake because I'm too open-hearted. The open-heartedness about me. I was dealing at the management lower level than dealing at the top. When you're a leader, I don't care if it's on the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. If you're the top of the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts, when you go somewhere else, you deal with the top. And I'm trying to be so nice and so open-heartedness that I was in the middle of protocol and leadership. When you're a leader, I don't care if the Sunband Club, a president of your student government.
Yes, sir.
You deal to the president of whatever. It could be the president of the country, president of another organization, but you don't subject yourself to go lower than who you are.
Yes, sir.
Also, you're so kind, and you pray for them and you touch them and say, God bless them, but you got to deal at the top. And when I didn't deal at the top, it was a conspiracy because for whatever reason, my life was threatened. And when you're in another country, you know, it's a frightening thing. I was in South America once. My chairman of the board, Dr. Lafayette, was apprehended over in South America and Colombia. He was in Colombia. And everybody that they kidnapped, with the exception of him, I think it was he and one other person, was told maybe 4 or 5. But he escaped, and he said all he did was just telling the Lord, get him the ability to talk to the people, you know. And he used the kingdom philosophy, because that's what he was doing. But you know, and the good Lord blessed him. And he was one of 2 people that survived. But I was in South America, in another country, Paramaribo, Suriname. And it was a frightening thing when the law enforcement authorities from a given country, and you just been there and you're not of that country, and they say you can't leave the hotel or the motel, you're on the investigation. You know, we want to know who you are, and because anybody can bring a complaint, and they have absolute control over the freedom, or not allowing you to have freedom within their country. Even coming back through custom, America can give you a lot of problems when you're coming through custom. Who are you to go to Paris, France? Oh, by the way, we got an office in Paris, Berlin, Rio de Janeiro. We're setting up one in Rio de Janeiro, Berlin. We got Berlin, but Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I've been in Brazil several times, and there's a lot of opportunities there, but the people are not in favor of their government. They're very skeptical. I said, no problem. We got the same problems in the United States of America. We're skeptical of the government. Don't ever forget the Tuskegee experience of the people there who thought they were being treated for syphilis, and they were not. They were being treated in the anticipation of being cured for syphilis in terms of their illness and mentally, but was given, which was nothing. It was just a series of supposed drugs to cure them, but the Tuskegee experiment, I experiment, the Tuskegee experiment was one that will forever go down in history in terms of African Americans being misled by the government. So we must never trust the government to do what's right in terms of the African American. Never trust the government. The Tuskegee case is one that we should never forget. So that's just one example. Now you're coming back with a vaccine for COVID. Are we to take the vaccine or are we to go without? I say pray very seriously to God on that. Each individual must think of themselves, because this government has always had a conspiracy to eliminate people of color, either economically or politically. Now, another thing, talking about economics, we only get 3% of the loans that's given from the Federal Reserve institutions called banks, where the Federal Reserves give money to the banks. Now, one thing in particular, in the last 7, 8, 9 years, we had 47 black banks. I'm proving my point. 47 black banks. Now we're down to 17. From 47 black banks to 17. It's been predicted by most economists by year 2035, year 2040, black wealth will be zero. Zero black wealth. That's because of the racism within this country. And I don't care who the president is.
Yes, sir.
Black, white, green, or blue. We have to demand that freedom and justice and equality, and especially the economic opportunities for entrepreneurship should come. We don't demand nothing. But we're all excited about getting somebody in office. When they in office, they are contained and retained. They are in them. They can't do but so much, but they can do a lot. If you put the pressure, the real opportunities happen to be people who galvanize themselves and bring pressure upon those who are elected. I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna close out. It was Franklin Delano Roosevelt who met with A. Philip Randolph, the sleeping porter, Carmen's railroad, sleeping porter union. It was A. Philip Randolph who said to FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Mr. President, we're tired of being second-class citizens. We want to be just like you all are in terms of the opportunities in this country. Why do you continue to segregate and denigrate people of color? We're tired of going to the back doors and the outhouses and not having the proper education and the opportunities or upward mobility for our people. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt looked at A. Philip Randolph, the foremost porter union, railroad union for black folks. And he said to Philip Randolph, Philip, I believe in everything that you said about Negroes and black folks, people of color, being second-class citizens. He said, but Philip, do me a favor. Make me do it. I can't do nothing for your people if you don't make me do it. That's what I'm saying. I don't care if it's President Barack Obama. I don't care if it's President Clinton, and they all are good people and all, but they are in a system. I don't care if it's President George Bush or the man we have in office now. I don't care who the president may be. You have to make them do it. That's the difference you're going to get from talking to Charles Steele. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I don't expect CNN and any of the other networks to interview me like you are interviewing me. So I take this opportunity to thank you, because when it comes down to it, Dr. King say, gather the information, get the facts. Most of them don't want us to have the information. First of all, they don't want us to educate our folks on the facts.
Beautiful. Okay, I just have 3 more questions. Do you have time, sir? Just 3 more.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, yes, sir. I want to make sure I take this time to give a special 60-second commercial break to our sponsors of this special podcast today, this month's podcast, but especially this specific podcast. You can Cash App the People's Podcast, $ the People's Podcast, for all of your donations. I thank you very much, because without you, we would not be able to keep going. I want to start with my brother Rashad, his business partner, Street Premier Media Production. They have a 4K camera and a drone. They work on television and film, and they're working on a big project right now. My sister Miriam Muhammad, ABC I Love Me, children's and coloring book, both of which on Amazon. Make sure you go get that right now. My sister Naima Muhammad, Stay On Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the world. Supreme Men's and Boy Urban Wear. If you want some good rate fashion and keep dripping, he'll send it straight to you. I'm coming back to you, Reverend. Raising Black Millionaires. Sister Tia Muhammad. She teaches economic empowerment through flashcards to young Black children all across the world. Thank you very much, Sister Tia. Brother Kenneth Muhammad, bow tie maker extraordinaire. If you like a bow tie to go with your nice outfit, reach out to him. He'll ship it to you. Exodus, a new way of life, credit restoration. If you want your credit done and restored, A1, reach out to them. Khaliq's Boutique, they do custom shirts, custom t-shirts, and I'm actually working on one right now. Thank you very much. Brother Shield X, the X and Express, he hires truck drivers and specializes in refrigeration. Thank you, Brother Chantil. Coming right back to you, Reverend. Client First Construction, Jabbar Muhammad, that's painting, carpentry, flooring, plumbing, etc. in the Chicago area and the Memphis, Tennessee area as well. Reach out to Brother Jabbar Muhammad. Dr. Henry M. Carter, right here in Atlanta, Georgia, King Henry Turkey Legs, especially during this season. If you want some turkey legs, reach out to Dr. Carter. Brother Rashad Muhammad, COVID-19 Disinfecting Cleaning Service in Chicago, Illinois. Reach out to him. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, AbdulSharif.com. Thank you very much, Dad. And last but not least, my 2 books, Cleopatra, the children's book, which is on Amazon, and No Father, No Excuse, which is on Amazon as well. If you'd like to make a donation, Cash App the People's Podcast. Thank you. Okay, sir, you have been married for 43 years, Reverend Steele. What has been the key to your marriage?
Love. Love. Very simple. Matter of fact, I proposed to my wife 2 days after I met her. And she looked at me and said, man, are you crazy? You don't even know me. I don't know you. I said, yeah, but I know that I want when I see her. I want you. But it took 6 months. And she finally said yes. But it's love. It's finding someone who's committed to the integrity and the honesty of what you do, and let them know that you're committed for this relationship. It's nothing like a relationship. It's first start with God. You got a relationship with God, God will do the rest. If you're serious about your relationship, God will direct you. I didn't direct myself. God within me used the spirit of directing me to the opportunity. So I could go on about that, but we've been together 43 years. We have 2 lovely daughters. Both of them finished the University of Alabama. And one is, a school teacher, and the other one finished in public relations, and she worked for SCLC as well.
Excellent, excellent. Okay.
And I have 4 beautiful grands. 4 beautiful grands.
Beautiful. And what is your favorite album of all time, like that you listen to as far as musically?
Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud.
I got James Brown up there. That's James.
James Cleveland with gospel, and also Otis Redding.
I like Otis Redding.
Oh, you're too young to know about all of that.
Yeah, you know, my dad put me on and sitting on the dock of the bay and things like that. So I'm
that's right. That's right. Your dad was listening, and that's what a lot of young people like yourself. They said, "Well, my parents, I grew up with it." But those not to forget Sam Cooke, a change.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, you know. So and of course, in closing with that, Aretha Franklin. You know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But I'm also in the jazz, you know. All of my heroes and sheroes in jazz has made that transition. Paul Chambers on bass, Al Davis, and
yes, sir.
Oh man, it just goes on and on. Art Blakely on drums. And
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. When I was like 14, 15 years of age, because I would go to Detroit every summer. And my cousin would take me to see them in a place that served no alcohol at the time. He come out at 12 o'clock and said, "Come on, I'm gonna take you to the jazz place." I said, "Man, I'm 15. He said, "You can go because they don't serve nothing but Coca-Cola." And that's how I got my down Washington, who's originally from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Okay,
and,
yes, sir.
I have a street name after down in Washington. But those are some great days, great experiences. But those are my most prominent ones.
Excellent. Well, my last question, sir, what would you like your legacy to be?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that before. Well, first of all, that I'm God-fearing and that I'm a family man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, my mom and dad had brought me up like that with the extended family. Then I was blessed to marry my wife and been married for 43 years and 2 beautiful daughters, 4 grands. So before anything else, I would like my legacy to be that I was a family man. It hasn't always been easy. Been tough for the black man, you know that.
Yes, but sir. Yes, sir.
Black men, I don't care what the liberation of all this other enabling factors in society bring about of today. Don't ever forget that black man has a responsibility, and we cannot relinquish ourselves on that. We are the leaders within our homes and our communities. Standing beside us, not behind us, will be our wives. And that black woman was there when the black man was running, when the insurance man and the bill collector knocked on the door. I remember many a times when that black man would go hide in the bedroom and that black woman opened the door. In some kind of way, she went in the cooking jar and come out with the money to keep repossessing whatever it was. So that's my legacy. Let the rest fall where it may. You know, many folks get caught up on the egotistical aspect. For an example, we got a monument at the state capitol, on the campuses of state of Georgia, the capital there, with the monument of Dr. King. How many folks know it was SCLC who demanded that? And when they had a reception and a celebration for the monument that we demanded Governor Deal, Nathan Deal, to put up, to erect and take down those racist portrayals of folks on the front lawn of the state capitol. We were not even invited to the reception. We were not even invited to the erection and the unveiling of that monument. So what do I care about the legacy of doing the work and then folks saying you ain't done nothing? It doesn't matter. Long as I led as a black man, the institution of my family, and then my community, and then others. That's what counts. They don't have a embracement of Charles Steele, president of SCLC, brought about this statue of Dr. King, the monument of Dr. King on the grounds of the Georgia Capitol. They're not gonna ever have nothing like that unless young folk like you and others put our name with Dr. Bernard Lafayette and myself and Dr. Larry, that we were there and enhanced and told Governor Nathan Deal, this is what we want. Told him.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Didn't have no question. We want it. How you gonna pay for it, Steele? I don't know, but You got to have courage to do what's right. So that's why I am. My legacy is what I do, but it started with the institution of the family.
Beautiful, beautiful, excellent. Well, thank you, sir. This is an extreme honor. We have learned a lot today. We're gonna put it on YouTube, and we're gonna make sure we share it on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Please like, share, subscribe, and we salute you and your family for the sacrifice that you have made. For we stand on your shoulders of you and your organization. So thank you very much, Rev Steele. This means so much to me, sir. This means a lot.
Thank you, and Godspeed.
Yes, sir. God bless you, sir. All right, goodbye. Thank you all for watching.